I walked into the meeting room, my mind sharp and focused. The deal we were about to discuss could change everything for my company. A multi-million-dollar investment. But as I sat down at the long, polished table, something in the air felt heavy. It wasn't the weight of the deal. It was something else. A tension that crawled up my spine the second I locked eyes with James, the white bank manager across the table. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile you give when you think you're better than the other person. The kind that told me exactly how he saw me. I'd been in enough rooms like this to recognize it, so, "Mr. Davis," James began, his voice dripping with condescension. "I'm sure your business background was very different from ours, but it's cute that you made it this far." He chuckled lightly, but I could feel the sting of the words. I didn't let it show on my face. I'd learned a long time ago that if I gave them the satisfaction of seeing me flinch, I'd already lost. I wasn't about to give him that. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, meeting his gaze with steady eyes. "I built this empire from scratch," I said, my voice even. "While you inherited yours," the words hung in the air. And for a moment there was silence. James's smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. He looked around the room, maybe to see if anyone else had caught the slight jab I'd thrown. But no one said anything. No one ever does. Not here. I felt the familiar rush of anger rising in me. It wasn't the first time I'd faced something like this. But today felt different. The way he dismissed me with that little smirk, as if my success was some kind of fluke, it hit harder than I expected. "Let's stick to the numbers," I said, forcing a calm tone into my voice, trying to push past the burning frustration clawing at me. "I came here to discuss the future, not to talk about backgrounds." "Of course," James said with a slight chuckle, clearly unfazed. He didn't take me seriously, not even for a second. The others in the room, all white men in sharp suits, barely acknowledged me. They didn't need to. They were just here to play the game the way it's always been played, where people like me don't get to sit at the table without a fight. I could feel my blood simmering beneath the surface, my fists clenching under the table. I could almost hear my grandmother's voice in my head. "Don't let them see you crack. Never let them see you crack." She'd always told me that when I was younger. And I was trying. I was really trying. But this was different. "Mr. Davis," James continued, completely unaware of the tension he was pushing, "I just think it's important we understand that we're operating in different worlds here. I'm not sure your vision aligns with ours just yet, but let's see what you've got." The others nodded along, not a single one of them looking me in the eye for more than a split second. It was as if they all believed what James was saying, like my place here was temporary, just a stepping stone in their world. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear into him right there, expose the layers of racism wrapped around every little thing he said. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. I turned to the screen, pointing to the numbers I'd brought, forcing my focus onto the data. "Here's the forecast for the next quarter," I said. My voice steady, but something in me felt like it was cracking, like I was holding back an avalanche of emotion. The meeting carried on, but I wasn't fully there. I could hear the words being spoken, but I wasn't listening anymore. My mind kept replaying that moment when James looked at me with such disdain, like I was nothing more than a token to check off his list. I could feel the weight of every small microaggression, every look, every dismissive word piling on top of me. I'd gotten so good at ignoring it over the years, at brushing it aside and pretending it didn't matter. But in that moment, it felt like it mattered more than anything. As the meeting ended, I gathered my notes, trying to maintain my composure, but my hands were shaking slightly. It wasn't obvious, but I could feel it. The tension, the anger, the hurt, it was all bubbling under the surface. I knew I had to make it through this room, make it through this deal. But for how long could I keep pretending it didn't eat away at me? How long before the walls I'd built inside myself came crashing down? As I walked out of the room, I could hear James's voice behind me, still mocking, still condescending, still completely unaware of the weight of what he'd just said. And I thought about it. How many more times would I have to smile through the hurt? How many more times would I have to fight to be seen as human, to be seen as equal? I didn't have an answer. Not yet, but I would. I had to. I stepped out of the meeting room, my chest tight, mind racing. James's smirk kept replaying in my head, every word dripping with that quiet arrogance that made my stomach twist. I couldn't shake it. "Not yet. Hey, Marcus, you okay?" A voice called from down the hall. I turned to see Jason leaning against the wall, arms crossed, giving me that knowing look. Jason. One of the few people here who actually got it. I forced a tight smile. "Yeah, just another day," I said, even though my stomach was knotting with frustration. Jason stepped closer, his eyes sharp. "Another day of them testing your patience?" I exhaled slowly, letting some of the tension out. Man, sometimes I feel like I'm just here to fill a quota. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Jason's expression softened. "Don't let them take that from you. You're here because you earned it. Don't forget that." I looked away for a second, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Yeah, but it doesn't feel like it. No matter how much I prove myself, they act like I'm just a token. A checkbox they tick when they need to look inclusive. Jason gave a short, empty laugh. "You think that's new? This place has been rigged from the start. We've been fighting it since day one." I ran a hand through my hair, frustration burning hotter. Every little thing, every look, every subtle word. It's like they're reminding me I don't belong, that no matter what I do, I'm still an outsider. "You're not," Jason said quietly but firmly, "and you never will be. But that doesn't matter. You're here. You've made waves. They can't ignore you forever." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the sting of James's words still lingered. It's just exhausting. I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd made it. But they make sure I remember I'm always different. Always not enough. Jason stepped closer, voice low but steady. "You don't need them to accept you. You know your worth. You know what you've built. Let that be enough. Sometimes the strongest power is calm and focus, not proving yourself to every small-minded person in the room." I felt a mix of relief and doubt. Could I really hold on to that? Could I continue in this environment without letting it eat me alive? I didn't have an answer yet. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," I admitted. "Every time I try to fit in, they remind me that I'm not supposed to." "It's like being trapped in their little game," Jason nodded, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You belong, Marcus. You've earned every step. Don't let their blindness make you doubt yourself." I nodded, but deep down the question lingered. Was I really here because of my work? Or was I just the face they could show when they needed to look diverse? The answer wasn't clear yet. But I knew one thing: I wasn't giving up, not yet. I had to keep moving forward, even if the weight of their subtle poison was heavy on my shoulders. I exhaled, squared my shoulders, and kept walking. They might not see me as equal, but I knew the truth. I knew my worth, and one day they'd have to see it too. I stood by my office window, staring out at the city below, but my mind wasn't on the skyline. It was on everything that had happened in the last few days. The meeting with James, his subtle jabs, and the quiet ways he'd made me feel small. And now everything was coming to a head. I knew something wasn't right. I could feel it in my gut. Then, the knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in." The door opened slowly, and it was Claire, the assistant. She'd been with the bank longer than anyone else, quiet, reliable. But today her face was a little different, pale, tense. She was holding something in her hand, a folder. My heart skipped a beat. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Her voice was low, almost too quiet. "I need to tell you something." I frowned, watching her carefully. "What's going on, Claire?" She hesitated, glancing at the door as though making sure no one was listening. "You need to know what James is doing." "What he's been doing for months," my breath caught. "What do you mean?" Claire placed the folder on my desk, opening it just enough for me to see the documents inside. "He's embezzling money, Marcus. Millions of dollars. This isn't just a little shady deal here and there. It's much bigger," my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I had a feeling. I'd been getting whispers. But seeing it laid out in front of me, the cold, hard proof, was a different kind of punch to the gut. "How much are we talking about?" I asked, my voice tight. 10 million. Her eyes locked with mine, and I could see the fear in them. He's been covering it up using accounts in the Cayman Islands to launder it. This goes all the way up the chain. I couldn't breathe. The rage started building, knotting in my chest. I stared at the documents. $10 million. I had no doubt James had been pocketing some of it, but now it was clear how deep the rot went. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't know whether I should be grateful or angry. Claire swallowed hard, biting her lip. "Because you deserve to know, and I can't stand by and let him get away with it." I could see the struggle in her eyes. But there was something else, too. Something more personal. "What's the catch?" She took a deep breath before answering. "If you go public with this, they'll destroy you. James has too many connections. The board, the media, they'll turn everything against you, Marcus. He's untouchable." I leaned back in my chair, trying to process everything. I wanted to confront James right then, call him out in front of everyone, expose him. But Claire's warning echoed in my mind. They'd destroy me, and for a second, I wasn't sure if I was ready for that fight. But then I thought of all the times I had kept my head down, all the times I had let James and others like him walk all over me. I thought of every injustice I had swallowed, every small insult and look that had chipped away at me, and the anger rose higher. "Do you really think I'm just going to let him get away with this?" My voice was low, sharp, as I leaned forward. Claire looked down, shaking her head. "I know how it feels, Marcus. But this isn't just about you. This could ruin everything, the whole bank, everyone involved." I stood up, pacing in front of my desk, my hands shaking. "I don't care about the bank. I care about what's right. I care about exposing this. The people who trust us, the clients who believe in us. This is bigger than James and me." Claire didn't say anything for a moment, just watching me, her eyes softening. "I just wanted you to be prepared. This won't be easy. And once you pull that thread, there's no going back." I stopped pacing and turned to face her. "I'm going back. I'm going straight to him." The determination in my voice surprised even me, but I was past the point of hesitation. I wasn't just going to let this slide. Not this time. I stormed out of my office, Claire following close behind, her face a mixture of worry and support. The elevator ride felt like the longest of my life. The tension was unbearable. The only sound between us, the hum of the elevator and the thumping of my heart. When the doors opened, I walked straight into James's office, Claire a step behind me. James was sitting behind his desk, going through paperwork, not even looking up when I entered. "Marcus." He finally glanced up, that smug smile spreading across his face. "What's this? You think you can go against me now?" I threw the folder onto his desk, slamming it down hard enough that it rattled. "This is what I think. $10 million, James, money you've been stealing from this bank, from every one of us." His eyes flickered with surprise, but he quickly masked it with a scowl. "You don't know what you're talking about." I crossed my arms, standing my ground. "I've got the proof, James. It's all right here." He leaned back in his chair, trying to regain control of the room, but I could see the shift in him, the panic starting to creep in. "You don't know what you're doing, Marcus. You can't go public with this. You'll ruin your career, your life." I took a step forward, never breaking eye contact. "You're right. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know one thing. What you've done here is unforgivable. You won't get away with this. Not this time." His face turned red, his lips tightening in frustration. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't scared of what he could do. What scared me was if I let this go, if I let him walk free, I'd never forgive myself. James's smug facade was finally cracking. The man who'd belittled me, tried to shut me down, was the one shaking now. But I wasn't done. This was just the beginning. I walked into the boardroom, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was thick with tension. Everyone was seated, waiting for me. Waiting for what I was about to lay down. As I made my way to the front, I noticed James sitting at the head of the table, his usual smug expression plastered across his face. But today, I wasn't intimidated. Today, I wasn't the outsider anymore. "You wanted to see me?" I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. James didn't even look up, acting like he was busy with some document. "Yes, Marcus. Take a seat." He motioned with one hand, clearly irritated that I was interrupting whatever self-important task he thought was more important. I didn't take a seat. I wasn't here for politeness anymore. Instead, I walked up to the table and slammed the folder in front of him, the sound of it hitting the surface cutting through the quiet tension. "James," I said, my voice cool, but the fire in my chest was clear in every syllable. "This is what I think about your little game." I could hear the collective intake of breath from the room. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, but James just stared at me, his face unreadable. "What's this? Another one of your little accusations, Marcus?" He leaned back in his chair, a condescending smirk creeping across his face. "You've got nothing. You think you can just walk in here and change everything?" I could feel the anger boiling beneath my skin, but I held it in. I wasn't here to lose control. "You thought you could hide behind your privilege, but now we're standing on equal ground," I said, meeting his gaze. James scoffed, clearly not feeling the weight of the words the way I did. "What's this? You think you can go against me now? You think anyone in this room will believe you?" His voice was dripping with arrogance. I leaned forward, dropping the truth right into his lap. "I don't need anyone to believe me. I have the proof." I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. It was the smallest crack, but I caught it. He wasn't as confident as he wanted to be. "Not anymore. Proof?" he said, the words barely making it past his lips. "What proof, Marcus?" "You've been digging around in places you don't belong. This is all just an attempt to ruin me." He stood up, his voice rising as he paced in front of the table, but I wasn't backing down. I grabbed the folder and tossed it onto the table, letting the documents spill out in front of everyone. The evidence, everything from the offshore accounts to the wire transfers, was all there. The silence in the room was deafening. "No," I said, my voice cutting through the quiet. "This isn't me trying to ruin you. This is me trying to stop you. This is me holding you accountable for the $10 million you've stolen." The room was frozen. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Even the usually complacent board members couldn't find their voices. But James was trying to hold it together, his face turning red as he wiped the sweat gathering on his brow. "You're lying!" James finally spat, his voice shaky now. "This is all fabricated. I don't know where you got this, but it's nothing more than a bunch of lies. You think anyone is going to believe you over me?" I stayed calm. I wasn't angry anymore. I was past that. This was business now, and I wasn't about to lose my composure in front of these vultures. I don't need anyone to believe me. "I have the proof," I repeated, this time with more force. "And the numbers don't lie, James. You've been embezzling funds, covering your tracks, and using people like me to cover your ass." The pressure was building on him, and I could see it now. His facade was cracking, the bravado slipping away. The man who had been so sure of himself was unraveling in front of his own board, his empire of lies crumbling. "Marcus," his voice faltered for the first time. "You don't know what you're doing. You'll regret this." I shook my head, holding my ground. "No, James, you're the one who's going to regret it." I turned to face the board. "I'm not the one who has been stealing from this company. I'm not the one who has been lining my pockets at the expense of employees and clients. I'm the one standing here telling you the truth, and I'm not backing down." The board was still silent, some of them shifting uncomfortably in their seats. They had all known, at least in the back of their minds, that something wasn't right. But none of them had the guts to say anything. I could see it now, their quiet complicity. They'd let him get away with this because he was the one pulling the strings. But not anymore. James looked like he was about to explode, his face twisted in fury. But even as he opened his mouth to shout at me, I raised a hand. "Save it," I said, my tone cold. "I've had enough of your lies. Now you're going to pay the price for every single person you've hurt, and I'm not backing down until you do." I stood there for a moment, watching him try to gather himself, knowing the humiliation was setting in. He had no escape. The walls were closing in, and he knew it. His arrogance had crumbled, and all that was left was a man desperate to save face. It was over for him. The room was still silent, but this time, it wasn't because they were waiting for James to make the next move. They were waiting for me. And for the first time, I felt in control. I sat in the lawyer's office, my hands folded tightly on the table, trying to keep my composure. The legal papers in front of me were thick, and every single page felt like it carried the weight of 100 lives, the clients, the employees, and now myself. James's lies had built a castle of deception, and I was ready to tear it down. But I couldn't deny the growing doubt in the back of my mind. This was bigger than I thought. and every step felt heavier. "This fight is bigger than you think, Marcus," my lawyer Rachel said, her voice calm but firm as she flipped through the case files. She'd been with me since the beginning, and I knew she understood more than anyone how personal this had become. "It's not just about what they've done to you, but to everyone who's been taken advantage of. This is about exposing the entire system. This is about righting the wrongs that have been done, not just to you, but to anyone who has been silenced and exploited." I leaned back in the chair, running a hand over my face. Her words hit hard, but they didn't take away the nagging feeling in my chest. "I know," I replied, my voice tight. "But every time I think about walking away, I hear their voices telling me that I can't, that I'll never win." Rachel met my gaze, and for the first time I saw a crack in her usually calm demeanor. "Marcus, don't listen to them. They'll try to make you think you're not strong enough or that you're alone. But you're not. You have the evidence. You have the truth. And that's more than they'll ever have." I wanted to believe her. I did, but the pressure was unbearable. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear James's voice mocking me. Every time I thought about the trial, I saw his smug face in my mind, dismissing me like I was nothing. I could almost feel the weight of the entire legal system, the people in power, ready to crush me under the weight of their influence. "We're going to need to be prepared for a battle." "Marcus," Rachel continued, breaking through my spiraling thoughts. "They'll try to settle out of court, you know that, right? They'll offer you a payout, a promise of silence. They want to make this go away as quickly as possible, but you can't let them. The idea of taking the money, just walking away and leaving it all behind, tempted me. It would make everything easier, wouldn't it? But I knew, deep down, it would never be enough. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I wasn't just fighting for the $10 million. I was fighting for something bigger, for every person who'd been silenced, every person who'd been crushed under the weight of the system. "I don't know if I can go through with this," I muttered, more to myself than to her. "The whole world feels like it's against me. Every time I think I have a chance, the walls just keep getting higher. The more I push back, the more they try to drown me out." Rachel didn't look away. Her gaze stayed steady, unwavering. "Then you keep pushing, Marcus. You keep going, because this isn't just about you. It's about showing everyone that no matter how big the system is, no matter how powerful they are, we can still take them down. But it starts with you, Marcus. You have to decide if you're willing to keep fighting." Her words echoed in my mind. Was I really willing to fight? Was I willing to sacrifice everything to expose this corruption? It wasn't just about the bank manager or the money. It was about showing that there could be accountability in a world that constantly tries to hide the truth. "I can't back down now," I said, more to myself than to her. But hearing the words out loud, I felt something shift. I wasn't just doing this for me anymore. I was doing it for everyone who had been pushed down, overlooked, and ignored. Rachel nodded, her expression softening. "Good. Because when they try to crush you, you need to remember why you're here. It's not about what they can do to you, Marcus. It's about what you're willing to do to them." I sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. I didn't know what would happen next. The fear was still there, but something else was rising inside me, too. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was resolve. I wasn't backing down. I couldn't. "Let's do this," I said, my voice firm now, feeling the determination flow through me. "Let's take them down." Rachel smiled, a rare and knowing smile, before standing up. "We'll fight this the right way. We're not going to settle. We're going to show them who they're really messing with." As we walked out of her office, I couldn't shake the weight of what was coming. But I knew I was ready. I had to be. The trial, the pressure, the fear. It was all worth it if it meant putting an end to the corruption that had been festering for so long. The legal battle had begun. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone silence me. I stood outside the door to James's office, my mind racing. I knew this was it. The moment that could break everything wide open or bury me for good. The settlement offer had come through, all polished and pretty, like a nice little bow to wrap up the mess he'd created. But I wasn't interested in being bought off. Not this time. Not after everything I'd been through. I could already feel the weight of the room, the tension hanging in the air like a storm ready to hit. I knew exactly what was coming. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. James was sitting behind his desk looking smug as ever, like he had all the control. He didn't even look up at first, just shuffled some papers, acting like I wasn't even worth his time. "Marcus," he finally said, eyes lifting, that arrogant smirk stretching across his face. "I assume you're here for the settlement offer. Good. I think we can both agree this would be better for everyone involved." I closed the door behind me and stepped forward. "You think this is just about money, James?" I kept my voice steady, but inside my heart was racing. "You think I'm just going to walk away with a check and forget everything you've done?" James chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "You don't want to make this public. Trust me, Marcus, it won't help you. You'll lose everything, your reputation, your career. You'll be the one ruined, not me." I stopped in front of his desk, my hands clenched at my sides. "What you did to me," I said, my voice low but carrying the weight of everything I'd been through. "It's not about what helps me. It's about making sure it never happens again. I'm not letting you off the hook. Not this time." He slammed his fist on the desk, his face turning red. "You're ruining me, Marcus." His voice cracked with desperation. "Do you think this will help you? Do you think people will respect you more for tearing me down?" I stood tall, refusing to budge, refusing to let him see me back down. "I'm not doing this for respect, James. I'm doing this because people deserve to know what you've been doing. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do." His eyes flashed with anger. "You think I care about what's right? Do you really think you can bring me down? I've got more power than you could ever dream of." I shook my head slowly, my voice firm as I spoke the truth that had been building inside me. "Your power is an illusion, James. It's all smoke and mirrors. And you're about to watch it all crumble." His face twisted into something ugly, like a man who had just realized he was losing control. "You think you're invincible, huh? You're just a pawn in this game. The only difference is you don't even know it. If you go public with this, they'll tear you apart." I took a step forward, not letting his threats shake me. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. "You don't get it, do you?" "I'm not afraid of you. You're the one who's terrified. Terrified that the truth is finally coming out." He leaned back in his chair, his hands gripping the arms like he was trying to hold on to something. "Anything. You'll regret this. All of you will. You think you're the good guy here, Marcus? You're just as much a part of this mess as I am." I felt the weight of his words, but I wasn't about to let him manipulate me anymore. "I'm not a part of your mess, James. I'm cleaning it up." For a second, the room was silent, the tension thick between us. I could see the fear in his eyes now, the realization that everything he had worked for was slipping through his fingers. The arrogance he had worn so proudly was crumbling. Piece by piece, as the truth settled in, I stood there, watching him, and for the first time, I saw him for what he truly was. A man who had built his empire on lies and deceit. A man who was terrified of losing it all. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready to expose him for the fraud he was. "I've got the evidence, James," I said, my voice steady and clear. "And no matter how many threats you throw at me, no matter how much you try to control this, it's too late. The truth is out and you can't hide from it." His face twisted in anger, but I could see the cracks in his armor. "You think this is over? You think you've won?" I shook my head. "This is just the beginning. And you're not going to get away with it." I turned to walk out, but before I reached the door, I heard his voice one last time. "You'll regret this, Marcus." "You'll see." I didn't turn around. "I'm already past regret," I said, my voice final, and with that, I walked out of his office. The door slammed behind me, but it felt like the weight of the entire world had been lifted off my shoulders. This was it. The moment of clarity I had been waiting for. I wasn't a pawn in his game. I was the one who had control now. I was ready for the fight ahead, and I wasn't backing down. I sat in my apartment, eyes glued to the television screen, watching the news cycle spin faster and faster. The headlines screamed, "Bank manager exposed in $10 million scam, public betrayal uncovered." Every channel, every news outlet, everyone was talking about James. And for the first time, I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my eyes. The room was quiet except for the buzz of the TV, but inside my mind it was a storm. James's face flashed on the screen, the same smug expression I had seen countless times before. But now it was cracked. His arrogance was gone. He was being dragged through the mud, his lies coming to light one after another. The public was turning on him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. He lied to us. The words from the crowd echoed on TV, their outrage clear as they protested outside the bank. "We trusted him!" I watched as James was escorted out of the building by security, his shoulders slumped, his head low. The man who had once treated me like I didn't even exist, now reduced to nothing but a scandal. His empire was falling apart, and everyone was watching. But the truth? The truth was, I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel triumphant. This wasn't a victory. It was just the end of a long, painful chapter. The world was finally seeing the man for who he really was, but all I could think about was the damage. The damage to the people who had trusted him, the people who'd been hurt by his greed. I thought back to that meeting where he dismissed me, belittled everything I'd worked for. I thought about the countless times I'd sat in that office, fighting to be seen, fighting to make a difference. And now here he was, the one being destroyed, not me. But was that really justice? The phone rang. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Rachel's name flashed on the screen. I answered quickly. "Marcus?" she said. Her voice calm, but there was a note of concern in it. "I saw the news. It's everywhere. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they didn't sound convincing. I wasn't fine. Not really. "I'm just thinking." "About what?" she asked, her tone softening. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen again as James's face flashed by. About how everything changed in an instant. He had all the power, all the control. And now it's all gone. I can't help but feel like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a win. Rachel was quiet for a moment, letting me talk. "It's not about winning, Marcus. It's about making sure people like him don't get away with it anymore. You exposed him? You did the right thing." I sighed, running a hand over my face. "Yeah, but even after all this, I still feel like something's missing." "You're not supposed to feel good about it, Marcus. You did what had to be done, and sometimes the right thing doesn't feel good, but that doesn't make it any less important. You've changed things. For you, for the people who came after, for the ones who will never get a chance to stand up like you did." I let her words sink in. She was right, of course, but the weight still felt heavy on my chest. The media circus, the protests, the way the public was now tearing him apart, it all felt so empty. Where was the justice in watching someone crumble? Where was the satisfaction when the person who had wronged you was already on his knees? "I just wish it didn't have to come to this," I said softly, staring at the screen where James's downfall continued to unfold. "I wish I didn't have to be the one to make it happen." "You didn't have a choice," Rachel replied. "What happened to you? To everyone, it was never about choice. You had to do this. Now it's over, and it's time to move on." But as I sat there, I couldn't help but feel like it wasn't over. The media might have moved on. The public might have turned their attention elsewhere. But for me, it wasn't finished. James might have been exposed, but I was left with the wreckage, the scars that would never fade. I hung up with Rachel, my mind still spinning. I'd exposed the corruption, but at what cost? The victory felt like a hollow one. I'd won the battle, sure, but the war inside me was still raging. The power dynamics had shifted, but I didn't feel like I'd regained any of the power I'd lost. I still had that nagging feeling that something was missing, that somehow the battle had taken more from me than I had ever realized. The collapse of James's empire didn't bring me the peace I'd expected. Instead, it left me with a cold, empty feeling. Because while the world watched his downfall with satisfaction, I was left staring into the mirror, wondering how much of myself I'd sacrificed along the way. It wasn't just about the scam. It was about everything, the lies, the betrayal, and the cost of standing up for what was right. I'd exposed James, but in doing so, I'd exposed a part of myself that I wasn't sure I could get back. And so, as the world moved on to the next scandal, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, reflecting on everything I'd lost and everything I had yet to find. I leaned against the balcony railing, watching the city lights flicker below. The world felt different now, quieter somehow, even though everything had changed. The courtroom drama, the headlines, the way James had crumbled, it all felt distant. But inside me, things had shifted in ways I hadn't fully understood until now. The weight of the past few months had taken a toll on me, Every step forward had been met with resistance. There had been times I questioned if I could keep going. But now, as I stood here, I realized I'd never truly been alone in this fight. I had my supporters, my team, my family, and most importantly, I had myself. You all right? Jason's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back into the present. He'd been with me from the beginning, one of the few who truly understood what this had cost me. I turned to face him, giving him a tired smile. Yeah, I'm good. Just needed a minute to breathe. Jason walked up beside me, leaning against the railing as well. It's over, man. You did it. You exposed them. You tore that place down. I shook my head slightly. I didn't just tear it down, Jason. I learned something along the way. This wasn't about destroying James or even the bank. It was about finding myself in all of this. Jason gave me a puzzled look. What do you mean? I sighed, letting the wind cool my face. It's not just about exposing the truth. I thought it was, but it's bigger than that. I spent so much time fighting for something I thought would bring me peace. Justice. A win. But what I really needed was to find my own voice, my own strength. Jason didn't say anything for a long moment, letting my words sink in. Then he smiled, a rare, soft smile. You've changed everything, Marcus, and it's just the beginning. The weight of his words settled in. He was right. The fight had been for justice, but it had also been about reclaiming something I didn't even know I had lost. Myself. I had spent so long trying to prove myself to others, to show them that I was worthy, that I had forgotten what it felt like to stand tall on my own. I wasn't the man I was before, and that was the real victory. I'm not the man I was before, I said, my voice steady, as the realization hit me like a wave. And that's the real victory. Jason's expression softened, like he finally understood what I was saying. You've come a long way. You were always strong, Marcus, but now you're unstoppable. I smiled at that, but there was something inside me that was still shifting, still trying to make sense of everything. The fight wasn't over, not really. The bank might have fallen, but the systems, the structures that allowed it to happen, they were still there. The change had to keep going, had to come from every person willing to stand up and speak the truth. As I walked back inside, I saw a few of my supporters gathered in the living room, waiting for the news to settle in. Some of them were my colleagues, others were just people I had met along the way, people who believed in the cause, believed in me. And as I looked at them, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. These were the people who had stood by me, who had believed when it seemed like no one else did. I cleared my throat as I addressed the room. It's done. The case is over. James is out. The truth is out. But there's more to do. This isn't the end of the fight. It's just the beginning. I've learned that the fight for justice is ongoing, and it's never as simple as just exposing one person's wrongdoings. It's about changing the system, making sure that no one else has to go through what I did. But it starts with all of us. Each one of us has to be willing to stand up and speak out. A few people nodded, a few gave quiet applause, but I didn't need that. The words were for me, for the people who had been through the same struggles I had. I wasn't alone in this anymore. I won't stop, I continued, and I hope you won't either. Because the real change happens when we refuse to stay silent. As I finished speaking, I felt a peace settle inside me, the kind that had eluded me for so long. The battle had taken its toll, yes, but it had also given me something I couldn't have imagined, a sense of purpose, a belief in myself that I hadn't realized I'd been missing. I wasn't who I used to be. I was stronger now, and I was ready for whatever came next. Let's do this, I said quietly as I turned to walk towards the door. Let's keep fighting.